I will check two major issues. First, to what extent lifestyle is free choice. Second, even if lifestyle is controllable for individual, why allowing discrimination on lifestyle factors gives justification for corporations to discriminate more on uncontrollable factors. Consensus in this debate, as Prime Minister set it up in the model, is discrimination on basis of race or gender, which is uncontrollable, should be prohibited. Then the point I want to extend in my speech is if we allow corporations to discriminate on the basis of lifestyle factor, which is quite vague and subjective, which enables corporations to discriminate personnel based on unchangeable factors of individual, then we think we have to take a harder stance to prohibit any kind of possible discrimination on that. Before that, I will deal with minor issues from the previous and the government speeches. First is about mismatch of possible applicants to the companies. The only analysis is if all the personnel are not smoker, and if I'm only smoker to opt into the company, mismatch will happen. The first response is if it is true, why don't just inform the possible applicants to the environment of the working places that only you are the only smoker. Then the analysis coming from Mitish-san is right is important, only way individual can exercise. If this is true, why not inform those individuals and let them to exercise whether to choose to opt into those corporations or not? What they are doing is to blanketly prohibit the channel to exercise those rights of individual because they cannot enter to those corporations. They will think it's problematic. Later, please. Even if right is okay, so this is I think enough. And the second issue from Mitish-san, later please, is like the corporation's autonomy. He raised two important reasons. First is corporations don't have to hire people. We concede, but it's quite generic. Because if this analysis is the only important analysis, why they are disallowing corporations to hire, discriminate persons based on race or gender? If corporations don't have to hire people, and if their only stance is to free corporate autonomy, why they are disallowing corporations to discriminate on the basis of race or gender? It's too inconsistent. Second is that there are lots of jobs, he explained. It's also the case. If this is true, why don't they allow corporations to discriminate on the basis of race or gender? So these two generic principles are not the consistent, not the important issue in this debate. Okay.
You say proactive informing will reduce mismatching, but that's contradiction. If you do that, that's substantially same as discriminating people by saying, you better not to come to us. Don't you think so?
We are not saying mismatch will decrease. We are saying individuals should be able to choose which corporations to opt in. That is the only argument we are protecting, right? We are not protecting the pragmatic consequences. What Josh explained in his first speech is even if pragmatic consequence is important, as Hayakawa-san said, individuals are more important. That's just even the case, so please don't misunderstand the argument. No more. So the last minor issue coming from Mitish-san is profit for corporation. He said corporation believes that unhealthy people will give harm to the corporations. First response is if this is the case, it's just go to the same response again. Why not allow bank to reject black people? Because bank believes that black people are violent. Black people can be harm to those corporation profit. If the only condition to allow corporation is corporation believes something, we don't think any consistent stance coming from the government bench. But moreover, we believe if the private life data please, if private activity can influence, they said private activity can influence the profit of the corporation, like political ideology or like the individual social networking service account. But even under Assembly House, those corporations can require individuals to erase the name of a corporation in the private account. For example, even under Assembly House, I cannot put my corporation name onto my individual private account. Then it's not that much harmful, even if in my personal account, say Abenomics is fucking crazy. But even if that is the case, those customer of the corporation under the Assembly House don't know my individual advocacy in the private networking services. Because if I were to create official social networking services, maybe I will be prohibited. Maybe I cannot say this kind of political ideology or this kind of harmful thing. Then there's not that much harm as is depicted even under Assembly House. For this reason, we say corporate profit will not be damaged. But even if you have to consider corporate profit can be damaged, the important thing is the extent of free choice. Later, please. Why we say extent of free choice and the controllability is important? The principle behind Prime Minister's speech is like this. Prime Minister said discrimination on controllable factor is okay, like drinking or smoking. But Hayakawa also said discrimination on the basis of race or gender, which is not controllable, is not okay. then the only important question in this debate is to what extent these kind of lifestyle factors is uncontrollable or controllable. Here I'm going to engage into the government side of the argument. Because as I said, the government stance is not only the protect their arguments sound like corporate profit and employee or shareholder is important, but their stance is these are the second best important thing because they considered that discrimination on the basis of race or gender, even if it can affect profit, is not admissible. Then the only question is to what extent it's controllable, no more. Then we told you like those lifestyle factors are extremely uncontrollable for a number of reasons. First, genetic tendency towards the individual, like some individual can have genetic tendency to be likely to be obese for example, or later piece. Or second is environmental factor. If you are living in a poor family, in which parents can only feed individuals by using extremely high calorie density food with the cheap prices, later please, they can only able to feed like fatty food like Kentucky or McDonald's. Then this environment forces individual to opt into certain lifestyle choices because those lifestyle habits in the childhood, no more, can hugely affect the later lifestyle of individual. Then we think it's extremely difficult for individual to change. The only response to this point is like individuals can change without telling on what reason or what concrete process individuals can change. Therefore, we think it's extremely difficult for individual, at least as same as a religion, for example. Even current context, corporations not allowed to discriminate on the basis of religion. Just because they're Christian, don't give justification to corporation to fire Christianity, for example. Then we think almost similar extent of uncontrollability exists into the lifestyle choices. Therefore, we say it's not to be allowed. But even if we concede lifestyle itself is controllable, why we say this motion will give justification for corporations to discriminate on the basis of race or gender, which should not be admissible. Because lifestyle factor is extremely ambiguous and vague concept. For example, drinking is deemed to be addictive lifestyle choices. But how about playing games? How about playing debate? All of these things are quite addictive and lifestyle choices, but they are not deemed as problematic. Then what corporations can do under their house is just because you are drinking can block the black people because banks don't want to hire black people or like these kind of things can happen. Then under as those corporations are seeing ability and interviewing, it's way easier for us to block this kind of arbitral discrimination on the basis of race or gender. Therefore, even if we concede lifestyle itself can be changeable, since it can cause discrimination on the uncontrollable factor, we should block any kind of possible discrimination we are happy to oppose.